Let's talk about Kimbo. The fight's coming up, and I just want to get all this stuff out on the table so people know the history, because some people don't know. You've got a beautiful looking left ear, and I want to talk about that too. But Kimbo Slice, I'll tell you how I remember him. I remember Kimbo in the backyard brawls in some swamp town, right, in South Florida, where he's out there, and he had all these nicknames, Kimbo 10,000 or whatever. I think he was a bouncer for like some, I don't know, pornographic filmmakers, and they used to take big wads of cash and put it on the line, and he would beat these guys up in these literally like barbecue brawls. And I always remember he had a great boxing style about him, not necessarily a good MMA style, but he had some really good, tight hand movement, and he would, light guys up, and it looked pretty nasty. And then his MMA career was kind of built on the back of that, and this is like 7-8 years ago when that's how you could actually sell an MMA fight. That wouldn't happen these days with the UFC or Bellator, probably. And so he was kind of thrust into the limelight and had a few fights in Bellator, and then you came up. Is that a pretty good synopsis of it?
Yeah, but pretty much. I mean, like people say to me, "How do you feel about Kimbo? Getting paid this much or doing this?" And I think, well, he's gone about it like. It's like people criticising me for the path I went down to get where I am, or that was just his path. Yeah. I mean, it was a great idea. I think he was the first person to get 1 million views on YouTube. And that's why we all watched it, because a big black guy in a beard, in a beard, like he just put it on, but a big black guy with a beard going and just smashing people at barbecues, with the ward, and I wish I would have thought about it. They just marketed him really well. And with that came a lot of pressure, but also good paychecks. So it's a yin and a yang. But ultimately, Kimbo's done well out of it. And and now it's my time.
Right, and so it was 7 years ago? Do we know exactly when? 8 years ago? I should check the date.
Yeah.
Elite XC calls you up and says, how would you like to fight Kimbo Slice? This is on, I think, CBS television. It was one of the first times I think MMA was even on television. It was fairly new. Yeah. They're like, would you like this fight? You were busy filming Gladiators here in the UK. Yeah. You had to ditch that TV gig and you go in. What were you thinking right away? Were you like, yes, the pay was probably good. I'm sure it was much less than what Kimbo was getting paid, but still you were getting probably paid well. Do you remember what was going through your mind?
Yeah, I was like, I got the phone call from my agent when I was in the Gladiators. I was on the internet or something, like some downtime after we were training for like the wall and things like that.
Pugilistic sticks.
Yeah. But I was no way getting the gig on the wall. That's for sure. I remember it took me fucking ages to get up there, and then I ended up falling off. And then when I came off, I ended up jumping off, and because I weigh so much, I hit the bottom, and then the guy on the other end went straight off. But I mean that was fun. But I was like 100%, went in, and what happened with the Gladiators? It was a bit of a, I am not really into or know much about the TV side of it, but I was kind of seeing how it went on, and they wanted to sign these contracts and blah blah. I was trying to start a bit of a revolution. Then I got this call for the fight, but it got back to the Gladiators people that I was a bit of a, I was a little bit older. I had a little bit more about me, so I knew what I was trying to get them all to stick together. So I went in there to tell her, the producing lady, that I got this fight and blah blah blah, and she was there to tell me that she didn't want me in Gladiators anymore.
Oh, okay.
So it was like a battle.
Okay.
It's like, you're sacked. I'm like, no, I resigned. He was going to get it in first, but it turned out nice.
So you got the call. Did you think you could beat Kimbo Slice?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that was a great fight for me, an MMA fighter. But, because I realised with all this MMA and everything, people say, oh, with the crowds and, the lights and everything and I just think, well, I remember being at a Japanese event, and the first time I fought Alistair Emelianenko, and I'm coming up from a fucking an elevator with smoke and walking out of some samurai helmet. I'm just like, fucking.
This is 2004, and you're how old are you? You're young.
Yeah, I was like 24.
Right.
24. I couldn't be much older than that.
How many people? Is this Saitama Super Arena?
Yeah, something like 68, something like that. It's
68,000 people.
Yeah. And but what I remember, and I'm just like, complete like 2000s the most people I've ever. I'm just so over my head, and I just remember. It's not about the fight, but I remember afterwards, all the crowd leaving and everyone sweeping up, and it was just another day, and that's all it is. Another day. Do you know what I mean? Just don't get caught up in all the bullshit and tinsel and everything, the sparkly shit. Do you know what I mean? You just gotta go. Know you can do it. Go in and do it.
Right.
And then enjoy it afterwards.
Right.
If you can.
And since you had already done that early work when you're 24 at Pride, you'd been through all the lights. So for the Elite XC fight against Kimbo the first time, that stuff wasn't going to phase you.
No.
So you were there for the fight. You were well trained for that fight?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was well trained.
And so we went through this fight, and as I remember, the first round, you won in all the judge scorecards, 10-9.
Yeah, that's
which
right.
was, you must have been feeling pretty good after that round.
Yeah.
Because his hands weren't getting to you.
Well, he'd landed a couple, but he felt very strong. That's what I remember about him. He felt very strong, but...
Are you bigger than him?
Yeah. I'm a lot bigger than him. Which is a great advantage to have. But I remember he was very strong. He landed one or two, but I knew I had more than him. And the second round, was mostly me laying on top of him. Landing elbows, that was 10-8, 10-8, and then the judge Gary Slime got, the guy he knew.
Gary Slime is the...
sorry, Gary Shaw, the promoter.
The promoter, right?
Yeah. So
had a buddy of his as a judge from New Jersey who you got 10-8 rounds. So people who don't know, that means you won the round by a huge margin.
Yeah.
And some other judge gave it to Kimbo 10-8, even though he was on the ground eating elbows.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that third round, if the ear wouldn't have gone, I mean, he probably would have given him like an 11-7. Do you know what I mean?
Right, so the third round's happening, and one of your ears is cauliflowered up, your left ear.
Yeah.
And so people that don't know what that means, it's got a big pool of blood, or it's got a pocket of blood in your ear, and you can do one of two things. You can try to drain it by sticking a needle in there, which is fairly common with wrestlers and MMA fighters, but that can also sometimes introduce an infection inside your ear, and then you might have to pull out of the fight. You made the choice not to drain it. You're trading with Kimbo on the ropes. He hit you with, I guess, a right hook.
Yeah, I think it was but
something.
I don't know, mate. He hit me.
It bursts open, right?
Yeah,
pretty epic. Blood
Yeah,
everywhere.
it was, yeah.
Going down your side.
Yeah.
And Dan Miragliotta stops the fight.
Yeah.
Completely stops it.
Yeah, completely. That's. I mean, you had Gary Slime and his son out on the side. Screaming, there's so much in that fight. Like, I had him in side control at one point. So Kimbo's there, I'm on top of him. I'm literally there 5 seconds, and they stand the fight up.
Right.
I said, how? I mean, Gary Slime and his sons, stand them up. And the referee, the referee wasn't bribed, but he just was easily led.
Yeah, and that stuff can add up, right? And that's just back in the early days when it wasn't clear, what the organization is, and people are shouting. It can sway the judge.
Well, yeah, I guess it wasn't as cemented, the rules, just because it was newer. Gary Slime that day, well, not that day, sorry, on a press conference, I always remember, they asked him, what will you do if James Thompson loses? Remember, I lost to Brett Rogers coming off this fight, so I was surprised to get the fight. Obviously, I'm going to take the fight, but I'm brought in to lose.
Right, coming off a loss. So they wanted you to lose, and you were on a press call before that, and he said, quote...
Yeah, what will you do, Gary, if James wins? And he said, I'll hang myself.
To watch the rest of this fascinating interview, click on the link below and go to londonreelacademy.com. There you can sign in with your social media login and watch the rest of the episode for free, along with all of our episodes on London Reel, my webinars, and all of our premium content, all located over at londonreelacademy.com. So click on the link below, you'll be directed there and you can watch the rest of this fascinating interview, and I'll see you there.